Hey everybody, this is Rob and Jordan of Archangel Inc. and we are here for live number 14. 14, is that right, Jordan?
Yeah,
14.
it's 14. What's up, guys?
All right, good deal. So tonight we are talking about using your book as a business card. What does that mean? What does that look like? What are some examples of how you can do that? And stay tuned because we are going to offer a few giveaways for people who have some ideas on the topic and want to engage with us. So we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But Jordan, how are things going? How's your publishing week going so far?
They are going good. I'm in the midst of some travels, so it's a little bit a little bit crazy this week trying to get everything done.
Mm-hmm.
Focusing on kind of the stuff I have to get done versus all the things I want to do.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear that. Yeah, we are things are good on my end. Archangel Inc. has been fortunate enough to have a number of folks come through, and we've got some projects lined up that we are excited about for 2020. So that's all good and fun, and I'm happy to be here tonight. So Jordan, I'll leave the floor open to you to begin. You proposed this topic. I thought it was a really good one, and it's something that I've written about a little bit. And so, yeah, feel free to share whatever you want and ask questions, give ideas, give your thoughts, and start things off.
Sure. I think we just wanted to talk about, someone comes up to you and says, hey, you should get a book. Instead of just using a plain old little business card, you should write a book so you can be the person that wrote the book on the subject.
Right.
And maybe you're thinking, okay, that's cool. Obviously there's a lot of work that goes into writing a book. Is that going to be worth my time? And then you get to the point and you say, okay, I want to use it as my business card. You decide that and you go forward. And then you have a book. And then I think sometimes the question is practically, okay, I have a book. It's my new business card. Now what? What do I do? Like, what does that actually mean in the real world? Like, so that's what we want to talk about today. Just some topics on how to actually go ahead and use that book. So I have a number of questions, kind of topic ideas, Rob, that I wanted to ask you since you did write the book on the subject.
And the book, everybody, that we're talking about is this guy right here. It is The Published Professional. And I might as well, since we're starting off the stream, and maybe I'll mention it a couple of times throughout to see if we can get any live audience members out there engaging. But I have 3 copies of this pretty little book right here, and I am going to send them over to 3 lucky participants, U.S. based, preferably. I can't send it all over the world, but if you leave a comment here with a topic on a publishing related something that you're interested to know more about, something you think might be a good topic for future videos, we'd love to hear it. Any pressing questions, ideas, whether it's about using your book as a business card or otherwise, then please feel free to leave them below. The first 3 to leave a good review, not just a good review or not just a good question, but any question, something that's engaging with you, then I will reach out to you and we will get your address and we'll send you over a copy. And happy to offer that because I think this topic is really cool, and I'm very glad to share this business or this business card idea with you.
Cool deal. I like that a lot. So let me jump in here and ask my first question then, Rob.
Okay.
I jotted down one of the first things I was thinking of. You have a book. It's an easy way to start a conversation. Now, looking at that, maybe you have, maybe you're keeping a couple books with you in your laptop bag or something like that. But how would you go about that? Say, okay, I have a couple of my books. I want to start a conversation. Maybe it's with colleagues or coworkers or something like that. I mean, would you go up to the person and, toss the book and say, here you go, and then leave? As an introvert, as I would want to do, I don't really want to engage this conversation, but I recognize how good that can be sometimes. So how would you go about that?
Right. It depends. I mean, I think having some sort of social delicacy and figuring out ways to integrate it would be nice. Hopefully in the context of what you're doing, it is going to be somewhat organic. So for example, if somebody asks you, hey, what do you do? Then that's a good opportunity. Maybe you're just meeting somebody, there's some sort of social networking opportunity, or maybe it's related to your industry. And that's even better. If you are networking, if you're a real estate person, if you are in health and fitness or coaching or any of these kind of arenas where you're doing some kind of on-site canvassing yourself, in-person canvassing, then there are probably going to be opportunities and you can mention it. So for example, when I went to a conference, it was a peptide conference, and I connected with one of our authors, Jay Campbell, a couple of months ago. he was a guest speaker there and had an opportunity to kind of introduce me to a couple of his colleagues and people that he had mentioned before, like, hey, if you're looking to write a book, this is the guy to do it with. So I had this, kind of organic pretext, very warm set of leads to be introduced to. And I had a handful of copies of my book. I said, hey, absolutely. Here's a copy. Here's my contact information. If you're interested in learning more, let me know. And that is a pretty low pressure way of engaging with them. And I've had, follow-up conversations with a handful of those folks. And, we'll see how things pan out. There's no magic bullet. There's nothing that's going to be a guaranteed 100% close rate, but it's something that, sticks in the back of your mind. And then you do regular follow-ups. Hey, by the way, just checking in, hope things are going well. And, you're getting ready for the new year. Give a shout anytime if you have any questions, or if you've thought any more about writing a book, be glad to assist or answer questions for you and kind of point you in the right direction, even if it's not with us. That's kind of our approach. That's one of the low pressure ways that we tend to engage with people, and that seems to work. It fits my disposition, and it fits, I think, the ethic that Archangel Inc. has as a company that I've built. So that's one good example. I do want to share another aside of a bad way to do it. There's if anybody's seen the 40-Year-Old Virgin, there's a sequence where Seth Rogen's character is talking to Steve Carell's character, and he says something about, the screenplay is, and he's like, I've known you for years. I didn't know you were working on a screenplay. He's like, yeah, it's because I'm not a jerk, because I don't go and talk about my uncreated art, and use it to, I guess, just get social esteem or something. So, it probably is not a good idea to walk up in the middle of random conversations and say, so I wrote this book and you should definitely read it because it's definitely going to do whatever it is that you're thinking.
Because I'm the bomb.
Yeah, because I'm awesome. And so, again, just you have to find approaches that work, that kind of put you out there a little bit, but are still within the context of your character and your vision and having integrity as a business person, as a creator, as an author, as a entrepreneur. One of the videos that we did a few months ago that Archangel Inc. did, thanks to you in part, Jordan, was on crowdsourcing your book and or crowdfunding your book. And so the author, he talked about kind of having to get out of his comfort zone a little bit and mention the fact that he's writing this book, mention the fact that he's crowdfunding it, and kind of work it into those conversations, friends, family, soft leads, reach out to other people, and again, doing it in a way that's sort of delicate and graceful, and not twisting anybody's arm, or, hey, I'm never going to talk to you again unless I can squeeze $50 out of you, or something like that. But it is, putting yourself out there a little bit, and you're going to be tasked with that. I mean, that's one of the primary things that you have to do as an author, as a creator. You're your own marketing agency. People think that even if you get traditionally published, they can just write and hit a button, send it off to an editor, send it off to the publishing house, and they'll just sit back and collect checks. But the reality is, and we've talked about this a number of times, even if you are traditionally published, they are going to expect you to do a lot of the marketing. They're going to look at what sort of platform you have already before they even decide to work with you, to give you a contract, to have a title on spec with you. And once it's out there, you're going to be tasked with, okay, maybe they can help with some press releases, but it's probably going to fall to you to go reach out to different podcast hosts to see if you might want to, or if they might want to host you as a podcast, to go to different guest blogs and reach out. Hey, I'm releasing this book. I'd love to share an excerpt of it, and maybe answer a question or two from your audience, or all these different approaches. You're still going to be doing them. And so again, I mean, that's one of the appeals of self-publishing. It is an opportunity for you to kind of capture that audience a little bit more in terms of revenue, but also engage with them a little bit more directly, because you're not going to be mediated from them by your publishing house, even though you're in both cases doing equivalent work in terms of getting it out there.
Yep. And I'll share too, to go along with that, like, this is something that I've been working at for a long time. The first couple books that I wrote, people didn't even know that I wrote books. Like they had no clue, my friends and family, and, so obviously some people knew, but it's something I really had to work at. I had to get myself out there, and this does become easier. You start to be able to discover how to do it more organically, and how it can come up in conversation, and how, when you're meeting people for the first time, hey, maybe I have a book that may actually be very valuable to them. And I think there's still part of me that, like, there's that hesitation.
Yep.
Not because I'm worried about being vulnerable. That's not really my hang up. My hang up is this valuable enough for them? Are they going to appreciate this?
Right.
But I think it's just something, I recently gave 2 copies of my book out to the owners of a co-working space that we've been visiting and kind of working at while we've been in Pennsylvania here. It's been a really cool space. These guys own the place. It's one of, it's a smaller co-working place, but these guys are really nice. They're very passionate. They want people that work online to meet each other and to kind of have that community. And they have a real heart for that. And I said, hey, maybe they would like a copy of my book. And actually it was Miranda, my wife, that told me, here's 2 books, sign them, bring them to them.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? That's great. I'll do that. And they really appreciated it, and it sparked some conversations. It's a really, and Robin, that's another, thing I have on here, that'll, lead us right into that. I think it's a conversation starter more than just, here's my business card. What do you do? You're giving people a window into you. And especially if you write, on the more personal level, as I tend to write a lot, I share a lot of personal stories in there. That just gives them a window into you right away. If it's someone that could potentially really like working with you. I know we've had a lot of our clients from Archangel Inc. that have read my books and have said, Jordan, like I really appreciate how vulnerable you are here and how you're willing to share this stuff. And I think that just builds that connection. It makes them, potential clients feel safe to work with you. We're not just some, weirdos online that are trying to get your money. Like, that's not what it is. We're real people. We really do this. And I think it's just an opportunity for that. But I'll stop sharing. You can talk to that a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah. So one of the first thoughts, and this is kind of bridging the first question with the second, is, how do you use it as an effective business card? Think about how you use your business card as an effective business card. You don't just randomly spam it and give it out to everybody and say, hey, contact me. It's like, you don't know if they're interested. You don't know if there's any relationship there, any context for what you're doing. So again, there has to be some sort of pretext, but more to the point of what you were just describing, when you use your book as a business card, it is an opportunity for them to get to know you. I mean, you can discern a little bit about somebody by their business card. Do they get the free one from Vistaprint? And like, okay, so that says something about it, whether it's good or bad or neutral. Or are they getting fancier business cards or colored business cards or clever business cards like magnets? I've seen business cards that are made out of plastic and all these different materials. So you can get a little bit of an insight into them. In fact, I'm thinking of that kind of ridiculous scene in American Psycho, where the main character is freaking out. If anybody's seen that movie, the main character is freaking out over his colleague's business card and, looking at all these subtle details and getting really nervous and anxious because, it's a little bit classier or whatever, more tastefully done or something than his. And that movie and that book are kind of wild as well. But the point is, you can tell things about somebody from their business card. It does convey a message. And, so you want to be deliberate about the kind of message that you are conveying. When you're doing it in a book, it is that much more significant. Like, yes, you can tell a little bit about somebody through their business card, and that's important. A lot of communication is actually nonverbal. So in human communication, you're communicating a lot of things subtly. But when you have a book, you're actually making it explicit. You're writing it out, and people have a chance to, in their own voice, hear you in their head. Because when you're reading a book, you're not hearing my voice unless you're listening to my audio version. They're not hearing your voice, Jordan. They're hearing themselves. And so that can help deepen that connection, and then see if there's resonance there. If they're like, yeah, actually that kind of speaks to me. That makes sense. Or maybe there's dissonance and they think, yeah, that doesn't jive with me at all. And that's fine too. Part of being an effective emissary is finding your tribe, and then also finding the people for whom you're not going to be a good fit. And, hopefully as you're expanding your circle, you're finding more and more of those people who are in fact good fits. And, as you're building your brand up and becoming more potent and powerful and knowledgeable and authoritative in your sphere, that sphere of influence expands, and you are more captivating, more magnetic because, of your expertise, of your mastery. But even so, there's going to be some people who are just not interested in what you do, or, they like another example. And this is from Hassan Osman, he talks about when he was first writing, learning to write, I think it was, C++ or Java or, some computer code. He read, 8 or 10 of the top books in the field on it. And he said, it's a lot of the same information, but some people convey it in a way that is more my style. Makes more sense to me. And that's exactly the point. Even if somebody, may like you personally, your writing style or something about your approach or how you explain things just may work better for some than for others. And that is, and that's great. And that's totally good and helpful. So using that book to kind of build that connection. And I mean, like you mentioned, being an introvert, you have an opportunity to kind of soft sell them. You don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. When you're a person, you give it to them. In this case, you gave those 2 co-working folks a copy of the book. It's a nice, no obligations, no strings attached kind of gesture because, hey, I appreciate what you're doing here. I like the setup that you've created and the resource that I have here. And I'd like to offer you this as a, token of gratitude. And, if there's anything I can do to help you, feel free to reach out. That kind of spirit and that kind of ethic, I think, can be really helpful.
Yeah, because I think, how I thought about that before, I was scared to go and do that. And, that is one of the best ways to use your book as a business card, is to find those people organically, is to find that, the people that you can have a conversation with. I think I was just always scared that, I don't know if they're going to want to read it. And like I said before, are they going to find it valuable? But, it's amazing when you give someone, and there's going to be people that are going to be like, hey, thank you, and they're never going to read it, and that may just happen, and that's fine. That's natural. But it is cool if you put yourself out there just a little bit and say, hey, this is my gift to you, sign it. Something about a signed copy people really like. It's cool. But it's not, it wasn't, I wasn't doing that to get their business. I was doing that to build a relationship. And I think that's the important piece to a lot of online marketing that gets lost is, and that's where I was in the beginning when I was at my peon stages of trying to build an email list and all this. I was treating it like I'm going to jump in and do the numbers game, do the automation right off the bat. And it's really not the way it should go. Eventually, if you have tons of people, you got to have some level of automation or a team behind you. You're not going to be able to manage all that yourself. But the more you can build relationships and have those one-on-one connections with people, that's where I think there's true business power in that. And not just so that you do well, but that's so your clients and the people that are coming to you get a ton of value too.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I want to divert over to something you mentioned a moment ago, the signed copy. So once again, for anybody just joining us, we've got the Published Professional here. I've got 3 copies, up to 3 copies for folks who care to comment down below on questions, thoughts, ideas on the self-publishing world, topics that you'd like us to cover, visions for the future, something that you're kind of struggling with maybe, or wondering about or curious about going into the new year perhaps, or in general as you're building your business. So feel free to leave those down below. The first 3 folks to do that, I will reach out to you, and if you are based in the US, I will send you a copy of this book, and happy to offer it as something that might be, as you were describing, a helpful resource for people out there.
And I love the cover of that one, Rob. I don't know if I've ever shared that with you, but I just love the design on that one. It's very unique, but it's perfect for the book. Cool.
I liked it too. This is our amazing cover designer. We went through a couple of concepts beforehand. And that one I thought was just great because the whole spirit of the book is, the subtitle is how self-publishing can help build your brand, attract more clients, and increase sales. And, we wanted this idea of a book as a stepping stone to something new, to building that business. And, and you're a professional person, and you may not think of yourself as an author necessarily, but you can still become one, and to your advantage. You can leverage it as part of that business building strategy. So that's, thank you. I'm happy that you like the cover. Yeah. I also really like the cover. I'm very grateful for our team here.
Yep. And Rob, that leads us right into another thing I want, probably the last thing I want to talk about with this, unless you have other concepts and other ideas to discuss. But I just wanted to share that it is just one more piece of the puzzle. When you're thinking business card, you just think of it as an upgrade of a business card, of a way that you can build a deeper connection with someone. But I wanted to let you speak to that as well. I wrote down just one more piece of the puzzle. We're working towards building a platform for ourselves. Right. It's really just building one piece of the puzzle at a time. And I think this is just one more way to do that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And as you were describing with building your automated emails and all of those things, as you become better in your field, as you start to develop some unique mastery, some authority on the subject, then one book or subsequent books can be helpful. One, to consolidate your thoughts, to give you an opportunity to really sit down and think about what it is that you've learned and what it is that you can share that's of value to people, and you can kind of utilize that, I guess, to figure out what direction you're going to go. So one of the things that I wanted to share, there's a list of, I don't know how many did we end up using for here. Hold on one second, everybody. So 20 reasons you should write a book. And, so they include things like you will become the expert, you can save on advertising, you demonstrate competence, you'll create valuable information products that you can sell, you'll have a powerful business card, you can attract more business, all these different things. When you're using this card, I mean, one of the underrated aspects, I think, is when you're writing a book, you have to kind of think a little bit strategically. You have to think a little bit big picture. A lot of people utilize outlines. That's really helpful. Other people, and that gives people an opportunity when they're doing that to think systematically about their business. Like, hey, who is my target demographic? Who am I trying to reach? Like, what is the ideal outcome in this business model that I have? I'm a coach. I'm a public speaker, or I'm trying to establish myself as a thought leader in this field. Or, like another one of the authors that we feature in here is, trying to remember his name. I apologize. I've
read the book. It's been a little bit, so I can't remember. Sorry, I can't help you out.
No worries. The Financial Planning Puzzle, Fitting Your Pieces Together to Create Financial Freedom. The author is Jason Silverberg, and he's a financial planner. And so he'll say to people, hey, before we come back, we've had our introductory meeting. We've established that we want to have some sort of relationship, business relationship here. Go ahead and here's a copy of my book, read chapter 3, come back with 2 or 3 questions for me so we can make the most out of our next session together. And it's almost homework or an assignment. Yeah. And that can be really nice. I mean, one, I think sometimes, at least I personally, appreciate kind of being brought back to my early days in school, where everything is just new knowledge, new information, new things to learn. And yeah, obviously, as we get older, we have more responsibilities and obligations, and maybe having homework assignment isn't the most fun thing that we can do. But if we approach it with a different sort of mindset, it's like, oh, right, actually, there are really useful things that are out there and that are in this book that I can learn and that are going to help me. And it's kind of cool. It establishes you as an authority figure, as someone with wisdom and insight to share, and it enhances that trust and that credibility, because again, you literally wrote the book on the topic. Like, hey, read this chapter. I wrote it, and I want to be able to have a more fluid conversation with you after we get together. And really, because I respect you, I want to make the most out of this time. Like, I don't want to go, and talk about the ABCs. Let's really get into the nitty gritty of what's going to make sense in your circumstances, so we can ask higher level questions, real leverage questions, when we actually have this FaceTime, which, if depending on the industry that you're in, they're probably paying a more premium price for it, and so why spend, let's say $200 an hour consulting with somebody, asking these introductory questions that 10 minutes reading your book or 15 minutes Googling or something can give you that same information. Let's instead ask, okay, so when I have all of this set up, like what do I do in this unique set of circumstances? I already understand what your philosophy is as it applies to X, Y, or Z. How about now? And it gives you an opportunity to really get the most out of it, and for you to understand as a student, as a mentee, as a client of this person, gives you an opportunity to understand, where they're coming from. You're speaking the same language. You understand their background and their context for it, and it makes a little bit more sense. Yep. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's good stuff. One last thing I wanted to say is just, I think in some ways, to sum it up, we should always be building our business and working in a way that's building our platform, but doing things that are setting us apart from other people. Not everyone's going to write a book. not everyone's going to be willing to go and do some public speaking. That's something you could think about. You know, people are frightened of that, and they think, you know, they're scared to dive into a book project. You know, not everyone's going to set up their own website. Not everyone's going to blog. You know, there are a lot of people doing all these things, but the more you can kind of build your resume and set yourself apart, the more authority then you're going to gain. Like you were talking about earlier, you know, gaining authority, gaining that like a little bit of knowledge, that the expert level that someone else may not have. You know, it's just another, like we were talking about before, just another piece of the puzzle to set yourself apart from whatever competition you're going against. So,
Yep, I agree. And
cool.
So I want to share a couple of other big picture ideas of ways to use your book, you know, as a tool to build your business and grow your brand, because, you know, it is a business card, and it's a business card operating in different ways, let's say. So one of them, like I mentioned, you can use it to enhance FaceTime, you know, interactions with your real-time clients. One of the first stories in the book that I share is from, I'll remember, Alex Goldstein, and you know, he writes this in a book, Publish to Sell, which is kind of dealing with a similar idea. And he works in real estate. He does high value realty sales, and he wrote this book on cash buying a home. You know, I think this was during the housing market downturn, and, you know, he put it out there and had some information, and you know, kind of just forgot about it. Turned out that he would get clients. People say, "Hey, I read your book. Let's do business. Can you help me, you know, with this situation that I'm facing?" And initially he thought, well, that's interesting. Like, which book was that again? You know, almost didn't remember that he had put it out there. And you know, he had done obviously not a lot of marketing. And he was spending a lot of time doing, you know, cold calls and mailers and all these different strategies. But ultimately, this book led to a lot of different people contacting him, and they were already pre-sold. They knew what he was about. They knew his philosophy. They were not going to nickel and dime him. They were interested in doing business with him specifically, and so you can use it in that way to generate a new client list or a new set of leads among your clients. Another way that authors have used it is another of our authors is Mandy Bloom, and Mandy has a book, Real Food Recovery, and she has a program that she put together, I think for kids in foster agencies, just helping them with better nutrition. You know, oftentimes this can really help with mood and behavior issues and just their overall sense of well-being. And she's got a nonprofit around that topic. And so she has these books that she sells, and people are able to support her nonprofit in that way. It's also been a way for her to get speaking engagements and be invited to different places. Jason, the financial planning puzzle author, has also mentioned using his book as you know, as a way to get past gatekeepers. You know, if there's somebody in your industry that you're looking to reach out to, and you know, maybe, you know, they've got a secretary, and their secretary has a secretary, and they're just really kind of hard to get a hold of. But, you know, you have a book, let's say it's on Amazon, you send it over to them, care of such and such. Most of the time, they're going to be looking at their own mail, or, you know, somebody's going to be bringing their mail to them, and they're like, hey, there's this book in here, and there's a note that says, hey, here's, I thought you might enjoy this book. I'd love for you, you know, love to connect with you. If you have some time, then, you know, here's my contact information or something like that. So it's a way to kind of bypass some of the channels that would prevent you from accessing individuals within your industry who are kind of standard bearers and who are maybe otherwise difficult to get a hold of. So, you know, and then finally, you can also use it as a way to kind of build and expand on your platform. And a good example of that is Jay Campbell, another author that we've worked with, and I think mentioned earlier this evening. Excuse me. And he can use the fact that his book, you know, the TRT manual. Now he's got the testosterone optimization therapy Bible. These big, well-researched, highly regarded books within his industry. You know, he's the guy. He's the guy that you talk to when you're interested in this kind of thing, and, you know, kind of tip of the spear, cutting edge research into health and hormonal optimization and that whole wellness sphere, you know. And he's got books with, you know, literally hundreds of 5-star reviews on them. And yeah, a massive reach. So people listen to his podcast, people, watch his YouTube videos, people ask him to come speak in conferences, and he can say, he's like, yeah, I'm, best-selling, a 5-star author, Jay Campbell. I have these books out there. You can look me up, and it's a way to open doors for him, and he's got, a podcast and people who follow along, and the fact that he has that book, and, it's well researched and, prepared, with rigor, and with a lot of the medical science included in there, gives him credibility, not just within the lay audience, but within the professional field. So he's got a lot of contacts who are doctors and practitioners, and they know, like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so it's a way for you to kind of consolidate your wisdom and insight and expertise, and use it, more than just Joe Average, reaching out to such and such doctor who's the chief cardiologist, let's say at Harvard, and it's like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? Who are you? Like, why do I care about you?
Yeah.
Instead, you can build like a little media pack. Say, hey, I'm best-selling author Jay Campbell. This is what I've been working on. This is my podcast. This is how many viewers I have. This is how many listeners I have. These are the sales of my books. These are the hundreds of reviews. Would love to chat, and here maybe you have some pointed questions, and you demonstrate that you're actually somebody who can allow them to advance their goals and advance their careers and demonstrate their expertise and mastery in their field. You're asking real and meaningful questions that get the most out of them as well. Boy, that's so much different than the soft query, like, hey, I'd love to talk to you on my podcast sometime, and I don't really know what I want to talk about, and I have nothing to offer. You have all of that. You bring it to the table, and it really maximizes the opportunity for you to have that reach. So there are many, many different ways that you can use it to build your business. And as one book that a book title that I heard, I never actually did see the book, did come across it, but it was How to Write a Profitable Book Without Ever Selling a Copy. There are lots of ways to do that. Jay, for example, he gives away his book for free. You can buy it on Amazon if you want to go that route. But I think a lot of, at least a couple of his books, are available. Like, hey, if you're international, if you don't have the means right now, shoot me an email. My team will get over, a digital copy of this book for you. So, he's making money off of the sale of it, but that's not the primary point. Like, it's doing all sorts of other things in the context of his platform. And, not everybody is going to have that particular approach, but that's an example of somebody doing it and doing it really effectively. And, it can be really a great way to make use of a book as a business card.
Yeah, I think the more creative you can be with it too, like, think of things that maybe other people haven't done, do things that people aren't doing, kind of like we were talking about before.
Right.
You have some business contacts, and you want to send them a letter. Just send them like a thank you card. You could potentially send a book along to them too, if that makes sense, if it works within the relationship. But we're getting all kinds of junk mail in the mail. How many of us are getting cards that people have handwritten? And that's something you could do. You could handwrite a note inside of a book, maybe put a card on that too, and you could send it out and may never hear about it, but it's just one more way to elevate yourself and just to put a little bit more work in, but not necessarily a ton of time or a ton of extra cash just to write a quick note. It's just that thought that you're thinking about them. Huge potential for that if you can try to find a way to fit that in a way that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You can use it to build that personal connection. I think also the point that you're describing, it's not as common, and so there's a competitive advantage that having a book affords. As an author, obviously we're kind of in this author space. We talk to people all the time. Almost everybody probably that you or I talk to has published at some point or is about to publish. But that's not necessarily the case in wider audiences and lay audiences or something. And so when you have, let's say you have a book about jewelry, or, you have a book about masonry, and how to find a good stoneworker, or, something, it puts you at an advantage, because then, how many other masons are out there, putting books together, or, bricklayers, or, woodworkers or something, probably a handful, but, your average contractor, in your neighborhood, in your region, within your field is not necessarily doing that. And so this gives you an opportunity to distinguish yourself. You're like, oh yeah, that's Rob the author. Like I remember that book was actually really helpful, and, gave me ideas on what I should be asking, my jeweler when I'm going shopping for a wedding ring, or, what sort of considerations I should have when installing pavers in my driveway, or, whatever. And it's just, at some point, probably, especially as more and more businesses go digital, you will have more people writing books. Right now, you can get in when the market isn't as crowded. You can kind of do it on your own terms, instead of being the person who, in 2019 is just finally getting around to building a website, even though everybody else has had them for, a decade and a half or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, you can, but there's so many awesome, amazing websites out there, and people who have spent, years and years perfecting them. There's a really steep learning curve, and it's going to be really hard to distinguish yourself and kind of blow people out of the water now. Whereas if you're entering the book sales space as a, non full-time author, as a business person looking to build your brand, then, the market is a lot less flooded, and you can, you don't have as high a bar or a high threshold to cross to really stand out and distinguish yourself. You might be, one of just a handful of people in your industry doing it. And that might be enough to really level your business up and take you to wherever it is that you're trying to go. So, it's a good opportunity to get in now, before you're kind of drug kicking and screaming, into the world of mandatory authorship.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. The world of mandatory authorship.
Right.
2025.
That's right. All right. It could be.
I like it.
Could be coming. Cool. Well, I think that's all I've got for now. So again, anybody who is interested, we've got this fancy little book right here, The Published Professional. We've got 3 copies going to U.S. Residents. First 3 folks who share comments over here on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel on self-publishing related topics, ideas that you want us to address, questions, struggles that you're having, anything like that. Let us know. We want to be useful. We want to be helpful for you. And I will reach out to you and send you a copy of this book. So I'll even sign it if you want. So you'll have an author signed.
There you go. Signed copy. Perfect.
Exactly. Limited edition. But I think that's it for now. Jordan, is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Nope, that's it. I think it's a good subject. I'm glad we covered that today. But yeah, if you guys have any questions as you're viewing this, definitely let us know. We'd love to dive into these subjects further, or any other subject that you have an interest in or questions in.
Right. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks everybody, and Merry Christmas coming up. We will be back before Christmas, I don't imagine, and
probably not.
But we may be back before New Year, to be determined. But in any event, have a great Christmas, have a great New Year if we don't see you, and enjoy time, hopefully with friends and family. So have a good night, everybody, and take care.
Good deal. See you guys.